All right, guys, welcome back. Today is going to be just me on the podcast today. All right, but we're going to be talking about expectations. All right, on episode 25 of the Tough Live podcast, today it is all about expectations. All right, I think there is an issue going on out there, and there always has been, actually. So I'm going to be the first to address it. Nobody else has ever talked about this topic besides me. We're going to be talking about expectations and three different subtopics of that. All right. When it comes to expectations, I think some people do not have a healthy mindset on what their expectations are and or don't have any at all, which is wildly dangerous. They're just kind of going through the flows. Um, Expectations are by definition like a belief that something will happen and or someone will achieve something. You could also have like negative expectations, which are kind of fucked up, but you can sit there and expect something will happen to someone, right? Not very positive. I don't know why you would do that, but karma will get you, I guess. They're healthy to have, such as like expecting your parent to be with you your whole life, or your dog greeting you at the door. That's a very healthy expectation. Or your loved one wanting to spend time with you. Those are all healthy, I think, perfectly safe expectations. They can also be extremely unhealthy. Sometimes people create unhealthy expectations. They are easily irrational. They happen because I think we have wants and desires for ourselves, and because of that want and desire, just like anything when it comes to like wants and desires, they sometimes can get kind of like outlandish. So like a good example of this is like your highly motivated 37-year-old that sees a sport and then decides he's going to go to the top. We see this, this anomaly in like weightlifting, CrossFit, powerlifting. These, I guess you'd call them like post high school, college sports. Yeah, and they just they come into sport. They've watched a bunch on YouTube, and they're like, I'm gonna train hard every day. I'm gonna get there. I train all the time, so I'm putting a ton of effort in. So my expectation is because I train all the time, all I do is obsess over it. I'm gonna get to the top. This is a very, very dangerous, unhealthy expectation. And the same thing can be said at the high school level with even like youth athletes at junior level is like they may think because they spend a lot of time on the field or in the yard practicing that they're going to make that varsity team, and it's like, Johnny, Susie, you're just not that good. But maybe mom and dad and grandma and grandpa have just been force feeding them with a silver spoon their whole life. Like, Johnny's such a great pitcher. He's always going to make varsity. And you kind of get a weird like Dunlap Kruger effect going, which is very interesting. It's one of my weird obsessions in sports psychology and psychology. If you've never heard of it, go look it up. Yeah, so expectations are good if they're managed and they're done well. The reason that what brought this podcast idea up is that I think in our gym and a lot of gyms going on, we have a lot of athletes making expectations where they believe that every training session should be perfect, and or this is the big part. Athletes think that training sessions are supposed to be these amazing feeling, unique aha moment sessions. Every day they come in, they get off work or they lace up their shoes, they come in to train. It should be, man, fucking coaching was awesome. Training was outstanding. Nothing was bad today. Nothing felt meh. And that was a great training session. And they think every day should be like that. I really do think that is what a lot of athletes feel. The fact that just having a, as the kids say, mid training session is like unacceptable to people. And that is a unhealthy expectation. A lot of training sessions for all sports are very mid-level. There's just medium. It's okay. Going in, doing your practice, and leaving is perfectly okay. Setting the expectation that every training session you do needs to be this fucking bombastic event where everything was just outlandishly good and perfect and amazing, and you fucking felt amazing, and oh my God, it was so good, and you're so inspired by your training is a fucking joke. Get off your high horse. You're smoking fucking hopium, and you're just being outlandish. You have a unhealthy expectation. Your training will never survive because of the standard you set for yourself that will never last a long time, and you will be burned out of the sport faster than you can fucking think of anything. I don't even know the reference because it's so fucking silly. All right, so that's what brought this podcast around. I believe this is because you guys have high expectations. All right, you've created somewhere along the route a high expectation that every training session should be similar to the ones when you got into the sport, where you had this huge dopamine hit because it's like, oh my God, I learned something. It was amazing. I fucking figured something out. I'm getting better. Well, now that comes at a higher cost and effort because you're getting more skilled. Skill acquisition takes time, focus, and energy to get those like 10,000 reps to where you're actually like, oh, no, I actually know what I'm doing. All right. Well, you can't do that every training session. It's not going to happen. All right. So you create these high expectations. And the problem with high expectations is they can lead to high levels of achieving above your peers, but they can also be extremely damaging if the levels of stresses that are associated with those are not being managed well. All right. They can literally be causing reduced confidence, even. You don't think you're getting better because training's not as exciting as it was. All right. Well, get the fuck off of it. Like, you're practicing. Do you think any professional athlete goes into their fucking practice and it's just like, I'm so excited to be here? There's literally a quote, all right, by a fucking famous basketball player that literally is him getting questioned about him showing up to practice because he was skipping practice. And we said it in the last podcast about like, he's basically getting grilled. It was Iverson, I think. He's basically getting grilled about like skipping practice. And they're like, well, practice is important. You'd be like, man, we're talking about practice. I'm talking about the game. I want to show up the game. Basically, they're grilling him because he got in trouble for not showing up to practice because he didn't want to, because it's boring. But like, that's the sport. You have to practice. All right. This can actually lead to reduced confidence, having these expectations. You start to not want to do practice. So you start to just think you don't need to do it. And then it's boring. And then you have lack of confidence because everything's not this big fireworks show. All right. Next, you get anxiety. All right. Having crazy high expectations leads to you having anxiety. You literally start to freaking freak yourself out over the expectations you set for yourself, whether it's I can't go into the day and miss any lifts, or I have to hit all the percents on programming, or I have to look good on what we practiced yesterday because coach worked with me really hard and spent an hour of their time working with me. So I don't want to make it to look like they wasted their time, and I don't want them to think that they're wasting their time with me. And you see how the fucking spiral goes? All right. Fear of failure. This is a huge one. You're going to miss reps. There's like one athlete in the world that maybe doesn't miss reps. Anomaly, right? When we have data acquisition, we take the outliers and we go, by outliers. We pay attention to them, but we don't include them in the data. All right. Fear of failure. You can't be afraid to fail. You have to give yourself the opportunity to fail. So this is like clarking. If you clark a bar, which is you like pull it up to your knee, you stop, you give up because you're afraid you're going to miss. You haven't even missed yet. You have not even done enough work to sit there and log it into your logbook as you've moved weight. So you haven't even failed yet. Fucking fail it, then figure out why you failed it. All right? Overthinking. You managing in your brain how to do the lift or the exercise or even the sport, because it's a sporting podcast. You sitting there and overanalyzing is death. Okay? It's just that simple. This is one thing I've said multiple times I wish I could take from the military, my ability and how I was trained to not overthink and to act and then react to the reaction. I wish I could impress upon all my athletes, but I cannot, unfortunately. You have to have more confidence in yourself and work on less overthinking and more doing, and then move on the fly. All right. Paralysis by analysis is the name of the game there. Then inability to move past mistakes is a huge one. Athletes I see multiple times will literally sit there because they're high expectations that they think they should know how to do something. They will literally sit there and avoid a movement because they suck at it. They're not good. It's difficult. All right. Because they had a bad time with a movement or a drill the previous time. It leads to anxiety. And then they can't get past that they didn't do well last time, even though they need this movement to help them. They cannot get past it, and it stifles their training. All right, negative thought patterns. There we go. Just like the last one. I can't do this. This is hard. I'm not good at this. I'm not going to get this. How does this help my training? All these are negative thought patterns that literally just fuck you on training, so stop doing it. It's that simple. If you have space in your head for negative thought patterns, then you have fucking space in your head to learn, so fucking fix it. Swap it out. That's how you get better. And then underperforming to play it safe is a weird one when it comes to height expectations. You've actually set a bar in your head that you think people think you are to perform at. You think people are never going to see you miss the net. You think people are never going to see you block a shot. You think people are never going to see you miss a bar. So you actually start to purposefully do actions like, for example, in our sport, weightlifting, you don't push the bar, literally, to go into ranges that are potentially ranges you would miss at. That is underperforming. That is because of your expectations of yourself. All right. One way to like meet and manage these expectations or realize that they're just plainly unreasonable. All right. Being able to maybe talk to peers, talk to people that you look up to, and just absolutely ask these questions. Be like, hey, am I being irrational? And then being able to like actually swallow the input they give you and trust that it's good is probably a great option. Obviously, working with a sports psych is good, but maybe working with a peer, a friend, and or a coach, and or a family member, someone like that would probably be helpful. Replacing strict lines with manageable fluid goals, I think, is another good one. I think a lot of times people like they chisel in their goal and it's like, I have to do X, Y, Z. And instead it just needs to be like, I need to do this chunk of the alphabet. All right. What I mean by that is like, if you're going to sit there and be like, I have to back squat 190, how about I need to back squat heavy consistently? You'll get there. All right. By sitting there on just one goal, one numbers focused goal, it gets really rough. But by focusing on like, I need to hit heavy back squats consistently in right technique, you'll get to your goal eventually. Think of your goals as cues that you're heading in the right direction. All right. So again, if you're trying to back squat heavy, you're trying to lift consistently, and you're trying to get to nationals, doing all those things, those are cues. Sitting there and telling yourself, I have to total X number at nationals is not a fucking good goal. It's a silly expectation because it doesn't actually help you get there. It doesn't move the ball down the field, really. And remember, like, to strive for goals that you just need to be having for effort towards them. All right. Your goals have to have micro goals for them. And even if you don't reach those goals, you still gained benefits along the way. You still learn things. You still practice to get there. It's all cumulative. All right. Your perfectionism, I said this was going to be a short one, but like your perfectionism is not a high expectation. Let's like take a second to really soak that in. So those of you sitting in the car listening to this, analyze that. If you're being a perfectionist, that is not you having high expectations. That is you being a fucking perfectionist and obsessing. And it's a different thing than having high expectations. All right. Mistaking those two will literally screw you over in sport because perfectionism can occur in environments where there is very little to none outside variables and or decay. And what I mean by that is like in sport, you have variables where there's rates of decay and or weather and or lots of outside variables such as travel and food and weight cut, all these variables that can affect you. Just because your little brain says you're going to do something, it's not like an Excel spreadsheet or just because you typed it in, it's going to do. All right. Your idea of perfectionism of if I line everything up just perfect, it will happen, doesn't work. Your body fatigues differently on different days because of how you slept differently on different days, because of how you stress manage different days, because of how your diet was different days, etc., 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 to the cellular fucking level. All right. If you're being a perfectionist and because your snatches didn't feel good as they did on Monday, so you think your training is going downhill, you need to pull out a big fucking trend chart and start scatter plotting or something and actually managing your expectations, because your perfectionism, again, is not high expectation. It's just you thinking that you should be an elite level, zero effect by any natural causation, perfect specimen of the human race. It's fake. All right. So Go into this week's training with good expectations, healthy expectations, continue to move the proverbial ball down the field, heading in the right direction to where you want to be as an athlete. This will get you to your goals. It's that simple, guys. Hope this helps. If you liked it, like, subscribe, follow. It's that simple, guys. Take care of yourselves.